I'm Julia Page Lemke. I'm a poet and tarot reader, and this is The Written Scene.
Hello and welcome to The Written Scene. My name is Adam Greenfield. I am the host, and today's episode is with someone that I've known the name for quite a while. Haven't really sat down to talk with her extensively, at least, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Before we do that, if you are new to the show, welcome. What we do is we talk about path and process of writing with authors and other people who write. If you have been here before, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. Okay, let's jump in. Again, this is someone I'm really looking forward to talking to. We've talked here and there, but nothing in depth, so this should be fun. So Julia, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So your book, Silent Sound, 44 Poems to Hear Your Soul. I love the play on words in that title. What is this book about?
This book is really my story, but in poetry form. So what I really like about it is that it's chronological in a way. So you get to see me growing as a person, you get to see my writing evolve, and you get to kind of develop your own spiritual journey along the way. So if you're familiar with the tarot at all, there's a card called the Strength card. And this is really the embodiment of that card. So the Strength card is all about finding your inner resilience. And resilience is such a word in today's society that is like, really, I have to be resilient.
Yeah.
But it's really about your inner courage, your bravery, your willingness to witness your own truth. And so throughout this story, you see me leaving a marriage and a very long-term relationship and realizing that that wasn't where I could continue to grow. And you see me come to my own creative awakening. And in that, I discover spirituality. And as someone that grew up an atheist, that was a big shock to me. And it was not something I planned or intended. I did not intend to be someone who followed the spiritual path or who even became a poet. But I started having these poems that just would come through me. And a lot of these are in the book. And you also see my story. The title poem in the book, Silent Sound, is about that experience of really hearing something come to me from outside of me and just having this very strange moment that there was this voice that I didn't know who it was, and it was guiding me and supporting me through leaving this long-term relationship. And throughout the book, you see me develop my own intuitive gifts and my own spirituality, and my writing continues to evolve. And ultimately, I find my identity as a neurodivergent person. So that's kind of where the book ends and leaves you. And all throughout this process, I'm coming back to my physical body.
Yeah.
So through tapping into the energy of creativity and intuition, I'm coming back to my own physical body and finding that home within myself.
It's amazing what not just writing, but writing poetry can do for that sort of thing. What have you noticed that poetry does better than any other genre? Let's say memoir or whatever it may be. Why poetry?
Poetry is not trying to prove anything.
Yeah.
Poetry is what it is. It's not negotiating with you. It's not people pleasing. It's not trying to say something that it isn't. It's very much, this is what I'm telling you. This is what I'm not. This is what I'm withholding. And you get to play with that. And there's such an energetic play and experimentation in poetry that you don't get in memoir, because you have to kind of fill in the gaps. You have to tell people where you are. And poetry, you get to be more metaphorical, you get to be more abstract, and you get to hide things in plain sight. So this being my first book, there were things in here I'm like, oh, do I want to publish this? Do I want to put this out there in perpetuity? But it's like, only I know exactly what I meant.
Right.
Each reader gets to really interpret and have their own experience of the material, and that somehow makes it feel safer on my nervous system.
Yeah. On the spirituality part, I'm curious, is it more of a just feeling spiritual overall, or was it sort of a specific, I don't like the word religion, but I'm just going to use it because I can't think of another one to use right now. But is it a specific thing, or was it just a general, you feel something more?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And my journey really took me from feeling something and almost to the point where it was overwhelming.
Mm.
So during the pandemic, I started having like these visions where that's so Raven style, I
Yeah.
would see
Yeah.
what was going to happen, or I would have these dreams and those things would happen. And I started having these experiences of non local intuition, like being able to receive information that was not told to me. And I started also just picking up the pieces of my entire life of where people thought I was strange and weird because I knew something that they hadn't told me. I
Mm-hmm.
started to realize that a lot of it was there all along, but it was getting too loud for me to ignore. And that the title of the book, Silent Sound, kind of speaks to that. It's like this deafening sound inside your own experience that is silent to everyone else, and they can dismiss it and tell you that you're strange or crazy or weird. And
But if they were on
especially
the inside,
if they're inside your head, it's so real,
yeah.
and in your body, you feel it. It's part of your sensory and emotional experience. And so for me, I actually started studying psychic work and energy reading and meditation. And I learned about the chakras. And I come from the Enneagram world, if you know anything about that. And so I studied somatics
Mm-hmm.
through a lot of that work and my own. And so I started to develop my intuition. And it's not a religion, but it's really just this experience of being able to read your own energy, read the energy of others, and recognize that there are energies beyond just what we can physically see.
Yeah.
There's a whole unseen world of our souls, our bodies, our relationships. There's all of these things beneath the surface that we can bring language to. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where poetry for me really fills that space of being able to articulate these things that for me are very much real and very much felt in my body on a day-to-day basis. But it's not something we are generally speaking about
Sure.
at large in society.
Right. No, not at all. Not at all. And that's what I like about poetry as well, is that it introduces to people who don't usually think in that way, the way that you can think, and how, I mean, I was just writing about this this morning about how everything I've done, like as far as writing is concerned, there's reasons I write poetry and fiction and not other ones. It's because those help me the most. And it's not that I'm trying to be selfish or anything, but that just works for me. It helps. As I've said before, with fiction, it gives me a chance to ruin someone else's life. You know, like that's kind of nice. Like it's easier to fix somebody else. So I can appreciate what you're saying about this, and I really appreciate the idea of bringing something that other people can't hear. It's like this silent war happening, and just to bring it to light. That's I think important. Were you finding were you finding a lack of poetry or writing that you connected with, and is that part of the reason for this, or did you just need to get this out?
Yeah, what a good question. Honestly, I didn't ever intend to be a poet. So I
Yeah,
wasn't
okay,
out
yeah.
there really soaking up poetry. Like
Yeah.
there were a couple people here and there that had very accessible poetry, but
Mm-hmm.
to me, I felt like I was outside of poetry and outside of spirituality. So that was the necessity for this book, was to say, hey, poetry is more accessible than you think. Hey,
Yeah.
spirituality and intuition is more accessible than you think, and it's real. And here's a way that's very grounded where you can feel into this and know that you're not making it up. You have this voice inside. We all do. And I just love the title so much because you don't have to really know what that is, but everyone has their own definition of what that means to
We
them.
we all know.
We all know that voice. We
Yeah.
all have that experience. So I wanted to create something that was a book of poetry and a story of an intuitive journey that was much more accessible than like getting a spiritual book off the shelves or even finding another poet out there.
So how important was accessibility to a wider audience to you when putting this together? Because poetry can be sort of confining in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see if you go through the book that there's some really short poems and then there's some longer poems. So that was very intentional, especially for my first book, to create something that wove together the beginning of my journey that was just these short little poems that were coming to me and supporting me through that journey, to some of these longer pieces that, I mean, I think the longest poem in here is 3 pages. So they're not that long. They're like a page to 2 pages at times, but most of them are pretty short. So a lot of it is, like you said, it's writing for yourself. It's writing your journey. And so in one way, this is reflecting my own story back to me, and I get to see my own evolution as a writer. But it also creates this piece that you have some breathing room between the pages, and you can almost use it as like an oracle deck. You just flip to a page and see and read that poem, and that's maybe something that you can receive that medicine for today.
I love poetry for that reason. One of the reasons is that you can just pick it up and flip through and find a poem and go, that's all I needed today. I'll check again tomorrow. Let's get another one, and I love that about poetry.
Absolutely. And every time you read it, you have a different lens. There's a poem in here that one of my clients and friends read at a baby shower, and I just would have never expected that poem to be read in that context, but to see it in that light, it just brings it's this
totally different,
completely new energy, and I loved that.
It's very interesting to hear other people read out loud your poetry.
It's strange
because they put their own spin on it.
It's very weird.
Yeah. I was at this there's a comedian named Greg Proops, and he's hilarious, but he's really known for Whose Line Is It Anyway, that comedy improv show, and he's a big fan of poetry. And I remember I was listening to his podcast for a while, and I was like, I'm gonna send him my book of poetry, just see what happens. And I sent it to him, and it was returned to me, and I emailed him, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to send this. He's like, I'm having a problem with my P.O. box. Sent it again, got returned to me again. Finally, he was going to be here in San Diego, and I was like, I'm just going to go to the show, and I'm going to hand him the damn thing. And I go there, and I hand it to him, and he's like, oh, thank you for bringing this to me. I was wondering what might have happened to it. On stage, during his show, he decides to read one of the poems, and I'm like,
oh no.
Yeah, right. I had that thought, but then he started reading it, and I was like, I never thought of it that way. And it's just so different.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to hear other people read their stuff, especially when you're so far past it, like mentally. Like my book is published in 2015, but it's 20 years prior of writing. I'm no longer that person. So that's definitely it's an interesting mile marker. Speaking of that, let's go back. I want to find out what were some of the books you were reading as a kid. What were some of the stuff you liked to get into?
Yeah, great question. I was way into like sci-fi, dystopian. Yes, that was my genre for the most part. So I read things about like genetic upgrades and very sciencey stuff.
Interesting.
So looking at where I am now, it's very different.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, that experience of, oh, I'm a poet, oh, I'm spiritual was a big shock to me and very uncomfortable, because I came from I thought I was going to major in biochemistry and study genetics.
Fun.
As a kid. So I also was really interested in being a radio host.
Oh,
so
cool.
Podcasting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's right up your alley.
Very on brand.
Listen up, folks, for Julia's next podcast at some point someday.
Yeah. I just loved going to the library and just checking out huge stacks of books. There was a book, I think it was Amelia's journals or something. And she would.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. They looked like a composition book. And she would just write about all the drama that was happening at her elementary school
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. So I loved those books,
That's great.
things like that.
Yeah.
I would check out books on animals. I would read about Mars, like way into all the science things for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. This was, I'm not trying to put your age out there, but I'm assuming this was before the internet, like before
Yeah.
like those sorts of things, you
Yeah.
know? So like that was a time when I'm going to say we, because I was doing the same thing. You'd go to the library, walk out with a stack of 10 books, and a week later you're back looking for more.
Yeah, this was the 90s.
The 90s. Okay, yeah, I was the 80s, so I was right before you. So yeah, so I mean that's I love to hear that libraries have that impact. I don't know if that happens anymore. You know, it seems to be more of an event space for kids, like where they go to see stories read, as opposed to going to get stories to take home to read.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'd love to talk to a librarian about that someday.
Yeah.
You know,
I have some friends that
do you
are
have
librarians.
friends? Send them my way,
Yes.
because I'm very curious. It's I think the librarians, you know, even in schools, are a big, not a gatekeeper, but sort of an opening for kids and reading and their books.
Yeah.
You know, and there are a lot of them really decide how a reading path can go for kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so many books I read in high school, for example, are banned books now.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me because those were so foundational to my literary understanding and my passion for the written word and things like that.
Scary to see. It was like that for generations before that too, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other podcast in itself.
That's how you know it's good.
You got to get your book banned. Then you know you're a good writer.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah. Life goal right there. Yeah. So if you were into biochemistry and all that stuff, like, have you held a lot of non-creative jobs?
Yeah, so I come from, my career has been in marketing and communications, but I did get a science degree.
Okay.
And I never ended up working in that field because I knew that like early 20s point was when the inflection point where I realized I don't think I meant to do that. I think I meant to be more working with people, working with creative things.
And you caught that in your 20s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been kind of backtracking since college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Michigan State University.
State. All right.
Yes.
Spartans. Yeah. They just beat my Maryland Terrapins really bad in sports recently. But anyway,
no.
I won't hold it against you, I promise. So did you go to school for biochem or?
I actually majored in packaging, which is a whole crazy side.
I didn't even know you could major in packaging. What does that mean?
So packaging is all about the engineering of the structure that goes around goods that we buy.
I love that. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a super niche program. I think there's only 13 schools in the country that have the program, and Michigan State has one of the best.
Interesting.
So I was drawn to it because I thought I was going to be able to do design and be creative. And I genuinely loved all of the people in the program because it was all of these people that were blending art and science. And that's very much who I am. So I really was kind of caught up in the social. And then I realized I was 7 classes out from graduating and didn't want to do this anymore, but I was so close to being done anyway that I figured, let me just finish. I can always get a master's degree, which I did. I got a master's in strategic communications, also from Michigan State. So I started kind of making my way towards more of a communication profession.
Yeah.
But it took a few years to kind of make that shift.
Okay. Did you take a break between undergrad and grad school?
I was working.
You're working?
Yeah, I was working full time for a couple of years at the university in procurement. So I was working with a lot of creative professionals that were bringing these big contracts into the university. And I was working with web design firms and things like that. So I got to really get exposed to all of the different types of creative professions, which was super helpful for me starting to navigate, okay, where do I want to go next? And then after that, I moved out to LA, and that was where I got my first marketing job, and I started working on my master's program online.
Okay. Are you from the Michigan area?
I'm from Michigan.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Boy, I've all of a sudden like 7 questions just popped into my head. Let
It's
me
a
try
lot.
to focus here. Yeah. So I have a friend who is in barcoding, which is another niche
Interesting.
industry, right? Like it's very. You would never think that there's a whole world around that sort of thing, but for him, it's a job. He likes it, but it may not be where he needs to go. I'm not going to out him. He's a little older. He's around my age. But he's realizing now that he may need to make a change here as a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you realize that early on, so I'm curious, like how much life experience do you think an author really needs to be an author? Or is that writing sort of almost inherent in a writer that may not be in other people?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So, part of my journey, I've done a lot of soul readings, intuitive readings for people. And so I'm reading their energy and I'm reading essentially where is the discrepancy between what they're ready for in their physical body
Mm-hmm.
and what their soul is saying, hey, we want to do
Need
this. We
this,
want to do
yeah,
this.
yeah.
We want to do this. And so often that discomfort starts with career.
Mm. Oh,
So
yeah,
that,
makes sense.
my job's really burning me out. My job's really uncomfortable. I'm not getting the fulfillment that I used to out of this industry. And as someone who has reinvented myself over and over and over, that I think is a life experience. That's the experience that translates into writing.
Right.
Being able to be courageous, be honest with yourself, and reinvent yourself and walk into that unknown. I feel like every writer is essentially writing about that. They're writing about
That's a good
how
point.
do I get myself to this thing that I'm not familiar with. What is that journey? It's like in the tarot, it's the fool's journey, or
Mm-hmm.
in storytelling, it's the hero's
Hero's
journey. We
journey,
have all
right.
these names for
The
it, but
arc
it's
of somebody, yeah.
really the same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about building that muscle of being able to reinvent yourself and being able to go, okay, well, I've done this before and I have no idea how this time it's going to go, but I trust myself and I know that I have the resources inside
Yeah.
to be able to pull from to do it again and again and again.
And again, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that they can do it again and again and again.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where you hit the crisis, midlife or later in life. I think
Yeah.
now we're having quarter life
Quarter life, yeah.
crises too. So I had that my mid 20s,
Yeah.
but everyone has those moments where they just can't go on any farther, but they also don't they're stuck in that position because they don't know how to make a change.
Do you think it's more that they don't know, or it's that they are afraid to make that change? They get comfortable with something,
Yeah. I think it's that their body doesn't know. Their
Oh.
body doesn't remember how to make a change and know that it's going to be okay. If you look
Interesting,
at
yeah.
kids, they run around and they're creating all the time and they're not attached to it. They're just making something and it's going on the fridge or in the trash or
Right.
wherever.
And they'll forget about it a week
They'll
later
forget
or the
about
next
it
day.
5 minutes later.
Yeah, yeah.
They're so in the muscle memory of creation.
Mm.
Whereas as we grow up in our adult lives and through decades, we get stuck in these rigid patterns.
Yeah.
And when I wrote my book, when I started writing poetry that eventually became this book, it was very much that feeling of I feel rigid. I feel like bound to this path. And I know that this isn't me. I'm meant to be more free flowing, more just ambiguous than this very rigid, defined thing
Yeah.
in life that I've somehow created that in a way I'm checking all the boxes, but I know in my physical body it doesn't feel right. So ultimately, I think people are just out of habit. And so when I'm working with clients, I'm always encouraging them. It's not about writing the book. It's about writing in your journal a sentence or taking a class that's not related to writing, that's something creative that kind of gets your juices flowing again.
Right.
It's about taking those really small, tiny, and imperceptible changes that our minds that are so focused on like success and achievement can say, oh, that's not even worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that that small action that gets you out of that rigid pattern and reminds yourself that you know how to play and you know how to create
You know
and you
how to
know
do
how to
it.
experiment.
Yeah.
And that is an addictive feeling. And you just keep doing the next small thing. And eventually you have the book or you have something else that you didn't even plan that is even more fulfilling, because some of the best things in life we could have never expected and planned it, but it just comes because we're in that flow state.
Yeah. I did not plan to get into podcasting. This was something
Exactly.
I fell into.
And here you are,
And here,
almost 100 episodes
100
later.
episodes, right? Yeah. And I make a living off of making podcasts for people, so it's
Amazing.
yeah, I never would have thought. And of course, podcasting wasn't like, when I was 7, I'm like, I'm going to be a podcaster, like that didn't exist, but it's, I think, I think you can create something out of thin air if you just take that first step.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest one. You're
It
going from
it
0
is.
to 1.
Yeah.
That's essentially an infinity.
Mm-hmm.
That gap, that space.
Yeah, that one space. Yeah. But I think that's in a way sort of exciting about it. I mean, before we started recording, you were talking about the retreat you put together and how once you were done, it was like, now what? Like, what do I do now? But I think that's a very exciting feeling because every single door is open to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in September, I hosted this retreat that was really a culmination of the last 2 or 3 years of hosting online meditation events and building my community. And 6 of us gathered in La Jolla Shores here, cool. 2 blocks
So
from
you
the
didn't
beach.
go to Italy or like
no,
Spain
I wanted
or
to
something.
keep it local for my first big retreat of
Right.
this size. And it was just, we were in the house for 5 days and just making our meals together and spending time together, also spending time apart. I had what I called a higher self hour every day, at least once or twice a day, which was really this 1 hour time period blocked out for you to have time to yourself and to be able to pour into yourself and not just scroll on your phone and pass the time, but actually use that time to do the things that your higher self always wants you to do in your day-to-day life. And from that, we created a lot of writing and drawings and just cool. So many things that came out of that beautiful event. And so I dropped the last people off at the airport and I started driving home, and just this feeling in my body that, oh, I have nothing on the calendar. I have nothing planned. There's no big milestone. There's no big deadline. There's no big launch on the horizon. Was just such a strange feeling because I've been constantly putting things out, whether in my personal life or my career or my creative life. There's always something. Yeah. So yeah, it was just this beautiful spaciousness. And it was mid-September, so I was like, okay, we're headed into fall and winter. It's the perfect time to just come back into myself and really rest and nourish a lot of the creative projects that I had started, but just couldn't give the attention that they deserve.
Yeah.
So I'm really loving this winter
this feeling.
time to just be able to focus on those things and like give it space, give it attention.
Do you find that you personally, and I'll ask you for you personally, not for everybody, but for you personally, do you find that you need that break in between those sorts of things, or do you need to go, okay, I need to jump into the next thing or else I'm going to go crazy?
Yeah, I've really sat with this a lot. And especially after the retreat, I was asking myself that question because my dream vision is that I'm sitting alone in a cabin writing. But then I look at my life and I'm out doing events and I'm bringing people together and I'm gathering these small groups. It's not necessarily community in the larger sense, but it's these small, intimate groups of human beings that get to know each other on that soul level. And so there's like this discrepancy between this vision that I have and then what I end up doing. And so I've really been sitting with this, and I realized that my soul has almost this like inhale and exhale. It's almost like when I'm inhaling, I have to bring a lot of that energy back into myself and nourish my own creative projects and write my own poetry and perform my own poetry and really dig into my own creative voice. And then the exhale is like, okay, I have enough. I'm full, I feel like I can start to like share some of this out, and I
Yeah.
can give back and serve. And it's this balance of both. And for a long time I felt like I was inconsistent and that I was not picking a path, and
Right.
like
Right.
it
It's
was
like you're
almost like
holding your
a
breath in a way.
character flaw, exactly,
Yeah.
that I couldn't just pick one.
Right.
But it very much is these two different rhythms, and they each have seasons. And it makes total sense that this year it was this kind of summer of serving, and then fall and winter I get to like come back into myself and kind of tie up some of my own projects.
I think that if you look at, what these sort of meanings that have been put behind seasons, how this is the fall and winter is like the end of something, and spring is the beginning again. It makes sense that you've sort of taken that route, or that route has actually taken you in a way,
Absolutely.
but I can really appreciate that moment. There's a lot of people I know who they need to have something going, or else they lose either momentum or energy, or desire even, or motivation to do something next. So I can appreciate taking that time in between. I work multiple jobs. I have a day job, and I get out at noon, and I could immediately start writing, but I need a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I need an hour. Let me eat something, chill out, watch a YouTube video, whatever. Just
Mm-hmm.
turn my brain off for a little bit before I dive back into it. I have found, though, that can be problematic, because then it comes 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm like, I just took a 2-hour nap. Like, what?
Yeah.
What just happened? So it can go both ways, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a question I continue to ask myself,
Yeah.
because I also work multiple jobs, and just I'm always doing
Something.
something.
Yeah.
So is it really that much rest if I'm not hosting another retreat in
Right.
the immediate
Well, it took you
future?
6 months to get there.
Is it really that much rest, or are we always just kind of depleted of the rest that we need? I think that's more the reality.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
So
good point. Yeah.
I try to slow down when I can, but I think the reality is that I'm very quickly back into the next project and the next thing.
Well,
And
I think we're in a society even where that's what it is. The news cycle is not 15 minutes anymore; it's 2.
exactly.
Like you have to, if you want to be relevant, if you want to find any sort of momentum or even success with writing, you have to be. It's like there's nonstop, and
Mhm.
with marketing, you
Yeah.
have to be out there all the time. People ask me, well, how many episodes a month should I do? And I'm like, well, I would make at least 2,
Mhm.
because after a week or 2, people will forget,
Mhm.
so it's hard, because you feel like you got to constantly be putting stuff out there, but that's exhausting,
Mhm.
you know?
And then there's Adele, who puts out a new album like every 5 to 10 years, and we love her.
I mean, yes. There's something to be said about the most prolific of people, of artists, and putting stuff out there. But I wonder what they do on their, like, how are they, when we're not seeing them on stage or performing or doing their thing, being who they are. How are they? Are they drinking themselves to sleep? Like, what are they
Right.
doing in that time where they're not who we know them as?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's very important. I think even as a writer, like, how we spend our time not writing is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, and living. This is a theme that continues to come up with my community and my clients. It's like we can't create if we're not also living our lives
Right.
and finding joy. Joy is a muscle just as much as creativity. And if
Yeah.
we're not serving that and kind of building up that muscle in our lives, then our writing suffers or our creativity suffers.
It definitely does, and there's so many other factors in life that can sort of push you back even further. I'm like I've mentioned, I'm 50 now, and I have this fear of, like, I don't know why it's not like it came out of nowhere, but it kind of came out of nowhere. I have this fear of dying before I can get my books published. And it's such a weird feeling to be thinking about that, because 10 years ago I was like, I got time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, I have no time whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I have to constantly be writing. My girlfriend and other friends are like, hey, just take a breath too. You're allowed to not right for a day or two,
Yeah.
So, but that's hard to remember.
That sense of urgency is very real.
It very
Whatever
much
it is, whatever the motivation for it is, that sense of urgency is very, very real.
It is, and it can be good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to use it for good.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
sometimes that's hard to do as well. I'm curious, when it comes to other authors, what makes an author on a personal level influential to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I've been reading more fiction lately and just digging into different novels. And for me, it's not even that the book has to be like this compelling read. Of course, that's fun to
It
have like an
helps, sure,
action
but
movie type book.
yeah,
But for me, it's like, does the book stay with me and change how I think about things? Am I just reminded about the character in the story or how the book ends and comes to that conclusion? There's a few books that I've read like that, and I couldn't even tell you why I like them, but the book just stays with me. Like Ocean Vuong is one of my
yeah,
favorite authors. Kurt Vonnegut's one of my favorite
mm-hmm.
authors, and Jan Martel has a book called The High Mountains of Portugal.
Okay.
Like that's another one. Like the book itself, they're all kind of strange
Well,
books and stories, but they just stay with you.
They stick with you. Martel, though, he wrote
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that
Yeah.
I will never forget that book.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Another one that I read in high school
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah.
But those authors, I feel like they're saying something that no one else is saying, and they're saying something about humanity or about grief or about relationships, and similar to what I was sharing earlier, like they're speaking to that unseen world
Yeah.
in a very poetic fashion or a very humorous fashion in Vonnegut's case. And it's almost like the books just tie together in a nice little bow at the end.
Mm.
And it's like you don't really know why you're going on this strange journey, but then at the end you're like, oh.
I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, and it changes you. There's another really strange book called How to Lose the Time War. Have you read that one?
Oh my goodness, no. Tell me about this.
So that one is about
I love the title.
two worlds writing to each other. So there's the red world and the blue world.
Okay.
So
sure.
Great metaphor already.
Yeah.
But they're both these like futuristic societies. One's more kind of naturey, one's more technology, but it's not that simple.
Okay.
So you can't really attribute either character to either like side to what we have now, so to say. But it's just very poetic and very strange. It's one of those books where you kind of don't want to finish it.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, you're like, oh wow, like you see these two worlds come together, and it says something in a way. You asked me earlier what poetry does that other mediums don't do. I feel like when I see that come through novels, those are the books that really stay with me.
I love a story that hits you like that. There's certain authors that that I have in mind. In fact, by the time this comes out, the other episode with Matt Bell will be out, and the way he, God, I can't even explain how some of his stories are written. It's like, I think I said in my newsletter how it's like you're reading another language, but you understand every word. And
yes,
that sort of thing, you don't get a lot of that. I don't think stories that connect with you like on that level, and I'll never forget those stories. I won't ever forget those. Matt's stories are like that, and so I love a good book that has that influence. Do you tend to start writing sort of differently because of that, or do you just accept that personally as something that changed you as a person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like we are just an amalgamation of everything we've ever experienced and witnessed.
Yeah.
And it's the same with intuition. You hear a word for the first time, you learn what it means, and then suddenly it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And now it's something in your library that your intuition can call upon. So I feel like there's no way that we can't really be influenced by things that we read.
Yeah.
But there's also quotes that stay with you. Like this year, I've been thinking about the quote from Zora Neale Hurston that is, there are some years that ask questions and some years that answer.
Oh, that's a good one.
And it's such a simple quote. And, you're reading it in the story, but that one quote stands out to you.
Yeah.
And it stays with you. And it's like in the collective lexicon. And it's interesting to see how these pieces of writing can be woven into a story. So I feel like that in and of itself changes how I write, because I think of every line or every sentence in something that I'm writing being something that could be taken on its own. Like, does it stand alone?
Yeah.
Does it have its own meaning? Does it have its own life?
Right.
So I look to the greats to learn a little bit from them through reading their own very poetic stories.
Yeah. Are there times where you are writing and go, okay, I have something here? Or is it always a work in progress to you?
I feel like a lot of times I think it's really great, and then I come back to it and it's really not.
Yeah. That sounds like every author finishes and they're like, this is perfect. The next day they're like, this is crap.
Some days I can tell it's just not working and I'm forcing it.
Yeah.
And that's really rewarding when I know I want to write something. The title book or the title poem in my book actually was what the whole book was about, but I hadn't written that poem yet.
Okay.
And I just had these like terrible lines like pulled together, and I'm like, how is this going to be the poem?
The poem, right.
And I just sat with it for a while, and I kept coming back to it, and I kept massaging it, working with my editor on it, and eventually it became one of my favorite poems in the book. So that's a really rewarding process when you know what it needs to be and you know the story behind it, but you need to bring words to it, and you have to be patient with it to let those words come through and come in and move through you.
It's like having a mental outline in a way. Do you allow yourself to be flexible with it? Or do you say, no, that's really, I really need it to say this?
Yeah, it's been really rare for me to have that outline. I feel like that's been the biggest change between book one and now the other projects that I'm working on now. Most of my poetry was very much, it was coming through this silent sound. It was coming through this voice, and I would just hear the words and I would translate them onto the page. And sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was okay. And sometimes I would revisit and kind of edit, but it was mostly a one and done situation.
Yeah.
And it was very much like I was turning on that water faucet of inspiration and then I was writing to it. But now I feel like I'm getting ideas for poems of like what I want it to do or where I want it to land or how I want it to take you on a journey. And I'm getting a little bit more of that outline, which is really cool to play with that and come back to something and edit it. And it's almost like these poems need my attention. And if I don't give them that presence that they need or that quality of time that they need to come through, they won't.
Yeah.
And so it'll just be this like false start of a poem that gets saved into the drafts forever.
The ether.
Into the ether.
That dusty e-file somewhere.
But if I sit with it and I let it come through over the span of a few days or a few weeks and really like let it be one of my top of mind creative pathways, it's really interesting what comes through when that happens. So my writing now is a lot more of that, which is really, really cool.
You're letting it happen.
Yeah.
You're letting it tell you what it wants to say as opposed to trying to get out of it what you want it to say.
It's actually almost the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Because it was more previously, I would just let it come through.
Okay.
Now I'm telling it what I want it to do.
You're like the bumpers on a bowling alley. You're keeping it in
I'm
track.
saying, okay, here's the title.
Okay.
Here's the question that we're answering. And then we work together to kind of fill that in.
It's like you have more control
I
now.
have more control and autonomy, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I like that you don't do the outline stuff. Again, in that conversation with Matt Bell, he brought up something that blew my mind, which is that he'll write a first draft and then he'll write the outline based on that first draft. And that way he can see what's there and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I never, for whatever reason, that thought never came to mind, but I love
Yeah.
that. Just get it out there and then break it down and see what's there.
Yeah, I feel like I do that too. I've taken a couple of editing workshops, and one of the things we did was just write down in plain language what you're trying to say in this poem.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that, you probably don't have a clear message. And maybe it sounds beautiful and it has all these great metaphors and everything, but if you don't know what it's saying as the writer, your reader certainly isn't going to be able to know what it's saying.
They won't be able to, yeah.
So that's been really fun. And the poems that I submitted to the annual that you read, I did that. I was like, okay, what am I saying in each of these?
In each of these, yeah.
Yeah, so Adam can know what I'm saying.
Now I understand what Julia's saying. Oh, okay, yeah. It helps. It helps.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of genius in brevity. I took this, taken this class once, and we did this experiment where we were given a handful of M&Ms, and the goal, we put one in our mouth, and then we had 50 words to describe what was happening. Okay, and then after that, we put another one, and then we had 25 words to describe what was happening, and then we had 10 words, and then we had 5 words, and we had to distill that feeling down to its most basic essence. And I loved that. That being able to explain something so quickly but so clearly is such a challenge that I love in writing. So I like when things are quick, to the point, and clear.
Yeah.
Like that.
And something I discovered in my poetry is that sometimes I would be trying to say 10 different things that are very big things about how the world works and relationships and love and grief and all the things at once. And a lot of the book that I have now, and even what I continue to do, it's like the poetry is telling me like, hey, I can stand on my own. Like this one stanza can be its own poem. And then you have a clear message in what you're trying to say in that one thing. And so that's how a lot of my short poems were born. They were from larger pieces. And then I just scratched 90% of the poem and either moved it into something else or just deleted it and wasn't needed.
See, I think that's called leveling up as a poet.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very exciting.
I bet. I get, as an editor, not only for the yearly one for the San Diego Poetry Annual, but this year I'm co-editor for the San Diego Writers Inc. Year in Ink anthology. And I've been reading through the submissions, and what I've found is that, and I think I've already known this, maybe what I shouldn't say what I found, what I've confirmed is that a lot of poets say too much. They just, it's just, you're saying too much. Like this could be broken down in half. Yeah. But that's a hard place, not a hard place, but that's an eventual place to get to. Because I think we want to, as early poets, we want to impress even ourselves with this whole thing, and then years later we read it and we're like, why did I don't even need those 3 lines,
Absolutely.
But I think that's a good stage for a poet to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Joy Sullivan, I think she describes it as being overwritten. I'm sure she's not the only one that says that, but I've been asking myself that question. Is it overwritten? Is there too much like flowery language here? Does it need all of this to really stand on its own? And sometimes when you say less, you're saying so much more.
Yes. You trust, it's almost like you can trust your reader to understand it without it. I think you have an important role in making sure it's clear, but at the same time, you have to, I was talking with some friends this morning about titles of things and words that a lot of people may not know, but I don't have a problem with that, because if I'm reading a book and I come across a word I don't know, I have zero problem bringing it up on Google real quick. What is that word? Okay, cool. That enhanced my story reading experience, So I think being able to just say it as you want to say it, but in the most succinct way, is such a powerful way to write.
Absolutely.
I don't know many writers that sort of focus on that anymore. But it seems to be getting there. I'm reading some authors, especially in fiction, where that's getting better. But it's not there yet, because I still read a lot of long stories where I'm like, you could have got half of that out. I think one of the things that a lot of authors want out of their writing, even if they're not willing to maybe openly admit it, is that they have a connection with their readers through their books. Would you agree with that? And what does that connection do for you personally and also for your writing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I published this book, I previously was doing one-on-one sessions and group sessions, and I was holding space in that way.
Yeah.
So releasing my book into the world was the first time where the book was doing the work for me. I had already done the work and tied it up in a nice little bow and put it out into the world and trusted it to work its magic on people when they were ready. Like you find the poem, you find the book that you need or the person that you need when you're ready for it and no sooner. So when you're creative, when you have a message to share, we can have this existential angst of like, oh, no one's listening to what I have to say. But when you put it out there in a book form, people get to come to it when they're ready.
Yeah.
So I had so many amazing moments of people sending me DMs and saying, oh, I read your poem at this event, or I have your poem or your book on my patio and it wants to be out there, so it encourages me to go outside. And it's like they were feeling into the energy of my intentions for the book through their own experience. So I knew that the message was being shared, and people would message me and say like, I'm crying in bed right now reading your book because it like hit them at the right moment that they needed. And that's just such an amazing feeling. And I feel like anyone who has always known that they're a writer always hoped for moments like that. And you know that it's someday you're going to have that impact on people, but to actually receive messages from people and have those moments happen in my life, it's obviously profoundly fulfilling on a personal level because it's a dream come true. And it's something that I'm really proud of. And we were just talking about editing. And as I was working through what poems would be included in here and, how short they would be or how long they would be, I kept asking myself, like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if I come back to this book, am I still going to be proud of it or am I going to be embarrassed? And I feel like there's such a fine line between, do I want to include this because, my ego is attached to it?
Right.
Or is this something like genuinely I'm proud of regardless of my age or where I'm at in life? And so I feel like that intention and that curation of what got included in here out of hundreds of poems that I have really is working. And I feel like it's only really beginning. This book came out last year, but I'm promoting it more, sharing it more, going to open mics.
More comfortable with it.
I'm more comfortable with it, more comfortable with myself. And I feel like it will just continue to grow.
And I was talking with Ted Washington about a manuscript that I have, and I was hesitant to do anything with it because a lot of it is based on a particular relationship. And I was like, I don't want to put it out there. It's just, it's not where I'm at anymore. And he reminded me that we all have stages in life, and that was just one stage in my past. That doesn't mean anything in particular. It just means that's where I was then. The writing is a picture of what was happening then, and that's all it is. That's all it has to be, and I was like, oh, okay, I never thought of it that way, but that actually made me feel much better about putting my past of things that I don't experience or live through or feel anymore, just put it out there. Somebody might be going through that at that same time, and they may connect with it.
Absolutely. It's like when you put something out into the world, whether it's a book or some other creative project, you're releasing that energy. It's like you're sending your kid off to college. It's like, okay, good luck. And you're hoping that all of the hard work and the intentions and the love that you've poured into it will translate. But it's up to people and your readers and whoever comes upon it to really have their own experience with it. And so this book it's my story, but it's also not at this point because so many other people have read it and they identify with it. It's their story too. So it's all of ours together, and it's no longer like attached to me in that way because now it's fully like tied up in a bow and out.
You can see it as an adult child in a way.
Yeah.
Like they're out in the world
Adult child.
making their own thing. They've got a career and everything now.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about it. Have to pay their bills anymore. Like nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a good feeling. That connection. I've talked about this before, how, if I'm at whatever, I'm selling my book and somebody walks up and they pick it up and they read one and they nod and they put it back down and walk away. I'm like, yeah, they didn't buy it, but there was a connection there.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt good, at least.
Yeah.
So that's important. I think a lot of authors say, well, I'm writing for myself, and that may be true, but I think you're lying to yourself if you don't say that you're also writing for that collaboration with other people, because that connection is so important. We sit in our rooms by ourselves all day and write.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. And so often I will have conversations with people and they'll be going through something that I've gone through in the past, and it reminds me of going through that.
Yeah.
And it's like I can speak to it now with a lot more wisdom and love than I could when I was in that experience, and I can write it to them. But it's not for my past self, but in a way it is healing those past timelines of my own experience, because I'm giving it some attention and some love, even if I'm imagining I'm writing it for a friend or a stranger or a coworker or whoever it is.
Yeah. It's nice to have it behind you in a way, and just say, okay, that's doing its own thing. It's like passive income. Like that's doing its own thing now. I don't have to worry about it. Do you like performing your poetry in front of an audience, or do you find that to be sort of a necessary evil of the author life?
Yeah. So that's a great question. The poem that you selected for the annual is actually all about my discomfort with performing, and am I an entertainer now? And like it just feels so strange, even though I grew up dancing, playing piano.
You're already performing in front of people.
I was performing, but I wasn't that super attention-seeking kid. But I'm a Leo, so
it's there.
It's there. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I like talking and having people listen to me, but performing is new to me, and it's something that there's its own art form. You were saying this on the episode with the pianist
Ji-Yoon Kim.
Ji-Yoon, that you know right away if a poem is for the written
medium
or the microphone. And I feel like I'm learning that too, and playing with that, and how can I create an experience performing that's engaging beyond just the words that are being said without it being too theatrical, because that's where I'm all about truth, and it's hard for me to pretend. It's hard for me to not just tell 100% of the truth, almost to a point of it being a character flaw. So I'm working on that. Like, how can I embellish a little bit? How can I add a little bit more drama?
Have a little fun with it. Yeah.
Have a little bit more fun and be comfortable with that in front of a bunch of strangers. So I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of the people in the San Diego poetry community who are super welcoming and just creating these really awesome open mic experiences. So I've really been enjoying that, because not only are you sharing your work and being able to see kind of what works in front of an audience, but you're also seeing familiar faces, and you're developing those acquaintanceships, like you and I have kind of connected here and there, and you start to just develop these relationships throughout the community. And I feel like that is maybe the best part of all of it.
Yeah, that performing part allows you to be a part of something that you didn't know you could do, for one, and didn't know existed for another. Like that's performance poetry versus reading it in a book is just vastly different. And I'm glad I started doing it. I was never, I played trumpet for the longest time, and I was always like second or third chair. I never wanted to be first chair. And then I played guitar. But I've always wanted to be the rhythm guitarist. I don't need to be the front man or anything. I don't need that. I just want to be part of the group. But when I started getting up there and performing, it was a whole new world that I was not familiar with nor very comfortable with. But I wanted to be. And once I figured out, as you were saying, the difference between paper and performance poetry, once I figured that out, it was like it was like the God, what's the word I'm looking for? The options opened up everywhere. Like it was like I could do more with this than I thought I could. So I appreciate performance poetry a lot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And what you were saying earlier, poets say too much.
yeah,
I feel like you really
You
see
learn,
that
yeah,
when you're performing, because not only do your words have to be engaging, but it has to make sense
mm-hmm.
when you're processing it auditorily, which for me is a lot harder than just reading, because I
Yeah.
can like read or reread. I can take my time with it. I can go at my own pace. So that has allowed me to become an even better writer, because I'm looking at each line and saying like, okay, is there something that you can receive from this, just hearing it?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Does it land in some way? Even if you're not getting the full essence of the poem, hearing it one time,
hearing it out loud, yeah.
Hearing it for the first time once, you're still getting something throughout it. And there's lines that stick with you, and there's memorable moments. And what I love about performing too is that it's such an efficient way of showing people who you are.
Oh,
it's like in 3 or 4 minutes, like they know your whole life story. They're in love with you, or they're not.
Or they're not, right?
Or they're not. That's fine.
Right.
But I have so many people that come up to me and say like, oh, your voice was so meditative and calming. And then I say, yeah, I teach meditation. I do meditation classes. And they're like, oh, makes perfect sense.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they know these things about me without me showing, describing
explicitly saying it,
and explicitly saying who I am. So what I said earlier, poetry is not trying to prove anything. Performing poetry is like the ultimate act of that.
Yeah.
Because you're just going up there for 3 minutes. You're saying, this is who I am, in other words.
Right.
And people get to take it or leave it. And you get to build community from that.
And I'm going to say this for anyone who wants to start their poem with, as a preface, to say that I just wrote this today. Please don't read it. Please don't read it. Just save it. Just work on it. Like, just read it out loud to yourself at home for at least a week. Come back.
Unless you're really good. Unless you're Carson.
Or Rudy Francisco.
My friend Carson did that at an open mic, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying people can't do it. I'm just saying a majority of the time, it is a first draft.
Yeah.
And it's obvious. It's a first draft. Just sit with it a little bit. Like, oh, I just wrote this today. I know you're excited. I get it. But like, maybe let it sit for a day or two, and then come back to us. I've noticed that people are very eager to share, and I fully support that. But you have to share. This is going to sound terrible. You have to share something good.
Well, and you have to receive the medicine of your own work first,
and it can't happen
before you share
that
it.
Day.
Yeah, it can't happen
Not
that
poetry,
day. You
least,
need to absorb and soak in what that poem is trying to say, and then deliver it and share it out, when it's ready. And sometimes that process is really fast. Sometimes it's a few days or a week. Sometimes it's 2 years. It just depends on the piece.
But you will know.
Yes, you'll know.
You will know. And hopefully, after you read it the first time, you know even more. Be like, oh, maybe this isn't ready yet, So I know I've done that a few times where I'm like, that wasn't there.
And the energy of the crowd is really important too. I often go and I'll have maybe like 3 or 4 in mind that I could read, just some options. And then based on the themes of kind of what everyone else is sharing, I bring a piece forward, and it's not always what I expect or what I planned, but those are the moments where it's like, okay, like this is the time, it's ready.
Now is when I read it.
But all of those things have to intersect.
It is a whole collection of things that have to come into line for that to happen. But I can appreciate being at least aware of it. So let's go ahead and wrap up. I've got this question I ask a lot of people. So I'm curious if there was one poem, book, song, anything creative you wish you wrote, what would it be?
I love this question. I heard it on the podcast. So I got to think about it a little bit.
All right.
And there's such a genre of poetry of people that I write with in community that I'm mad that I didn't write it.
Yeah.
It's so good. So I love seeing that, like writers who haven't yet like quote unquote made it, but are writing in these spaces and putting things out there that I just absolutely like wish that I wrote.
Yeah.
That's the best feeling. And then there's a line in one of Adele's songs where she says, I just want to love you for free. I just want to love you for free. And that line is just something that I come back to time and time again.
Wow,
I don't know exactly
powerful line.
what she meant by it, but for me, it reminds me of like there's trauma and life experiences and like resistances in the body that keep us from just like loving in this most huge expansive way.
Yeah.
And like that line to me just says like I just want to like let it all go and just like forget circumstance.
I don't want to have to pay for it later.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want it to be good now and forever and not
unencumbered.
That's a good line.
I always come back to that line. I love it so much.
Yeah, Adele, huh? Mm-hmm. You've mentioned Adele a few times today. I'm curious.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. But you also played music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, have you ever thought to be a musician more than a writer?
I did some songwriting. Yeah, back in high school. And like I've done it. I've done a little bit. I didn't love performing. I did choir a bunch. Okay. So I love singing. I love expressing in that way. I've played piano and competed in that scene, and it's definitely like a part of me. I've also taught piano lessons. Okay. So like I've done kind of all these things to lead me to poetry, which I feel like is my ultimate expression. And music gets to be something that inspires me, or maybe it like goes in the backdrop. I was at an open mic where a guitarist was like, hey, does anyone want to read poetry over this? And one of my friends got up there and read one of Andrea Gibson's poetry shortly after their passing. And it was like just this like beautiful alchemy of the mediums coming together. So I never really wanted to be like a full-on pop star.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah, your own Adele.
Yeah, but I definitely have artists like Sarah Bareilles and Adele that like they just like speak to my soul, and their voice and their lyrics just give me so much.
It's, as you can see, I've got two guitars hanging up here, and I play not as much as I used to. When I was younger, I had dreams of being in a band and all that. And just like any good author, I realized that was the wrong path. As much as I enjoyed it, but I still like what I'll do is there's like a song I want to learn how to play, so I'll learn how to play it, and then I'll record it on my phone, and then I'll post it on Facebook, and I call it Covers from a Couch, and I just sit there, and it's just for me and my friends. Like I don't need it to be anything more than that. I don't want it to be anything more than that, but it's such a nice outlet to have, as just an extra way to get out what my writing can't.
Absolutely.
It's a final clearing out of the gunk that writing didn't find.
Yeah. Does the writing feel easy, and the music, like trying to like build and grow the music, did that feel like hard?
No. Well, the interesting part is that what I struggled with was writing lyrics. I can pick up my guitar now and write probably the music for a song within an hour.
Awesome.
But if you want me to write lyrics for that song, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can write you a poem, but I can't write lyrics.
Interesting. So it's just a different expression.
Way of, exactly. Yeah. So I always struggled with that for whatever reason. And whenever I would write a song, it'd be like once a year. I'd write something. And I'd be like, oh my God, I have lyrics.
Yeah.
And it was such a shock to me. So I was like, maybe this isn't what I should be doing. I started writing poetry, and I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
But I love having both. Every once in a while, just pulling down the guitar from the wall and just playing, just to get it out,
Absolutely.
So I don't know, maybe what we should do is start a band of all the writers here in San Diego that play music.
We'll write your lyrics.
Well, yeah, there you go. Somebody write my lyrics. I'll write the music. You guys write the lyrics. Yeah. Well, Julia, thank you for doing this. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and talk.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was great.